Hi there. Hello. Welcome back to the Pitch Grid. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is going to be a another preview episode, as is per usual here so far. We will be going over the upcoming week of EFL action and the news, as well as the Week 7 news and action in the NFL. And there is a lot to go over, so let's jump right in. So, let's go to the EFL, go pitch side. Um, there isn't much news that's really come out. Um, we're still keeping tabs on the Wayne Rooney situation that we discussed a week or so ago. Um, so let's head right down to the games. And we start off with a tasty one that everyone is looking forward to, and that is Leeds versus Sheffield United. It is second versus fifth in the table. Um, Leeds started off slow, but they have really rounded into form since the first couple of weeks. Sheffield United just have been themselves. They have not lost a game yet this year. They have 6 wins and 3 draws. Leeds is 4 wins, 4 draws, and a loss. So Leeds were tabbed as the pretty much automatic tap for promotion in the automatic spot. Um, Sheffield United were tapped to also be pretty close up there, and that's standings reflect that so far, and the play does as well. Um, Leeds are led by their lead scorer Joel Pirot, who has in 4 goals in 9 matches. Willie Nanto, their really promising star, he has 2 goals in 9 matches as well, as he's tied up there with Brent Aronson. Also in 9 matches, he has 2 goals. These are two very even teams. Leeds has the more goals. Sheffield United does not have a huge propensity to score a ton of goals. They win by 1, maybe 2 goals at most. Typically, they're a very rugged defensive team, and they can bog you down in a very ugly game. That is their MO so far this year. They have, and both of these teams have not they have a pretty positive healthy goal differential. Leads with a +8, and Sheffield United with a +9 goal differential. So that's pretty good. Leeds is the much more sharing the ball type team. They play fast paced, high press game. 14 assists to Sheffield United 7. Sheffield United, they've only allowed 3 goals this entire season. That's amazing. Not much better you can do from that. Um, Callum O'Hare is the leading scorer for Sheffield United. He's tied also by Andre Brooks with 2 goals in 9 matches. Gustavo Almer, very underrated. Well, I wouldn't say underrated. He's a very, very solid championship player to have in your holster. He has 1 goal in 9 matches, and he is very good at what he does. Actually, no. Gustavo Hammer is the lead scorer for Sheffield United, my bad, with 4 goals in 9 matches. Um, and our blaster and Roxama have 2 goals. I was looking at assists. Wilfred Yonto actually leads Leeds with assists for Cal O'Hare with 2. So these are two teams that play very contrasting styles of play. I believe, um, yeah, I think Sheffield United are actually pegged to be the half goal underdogs in this one, which makes sense because Leeds are very much highly regarded in the EFL circles, and they should be. They are very dangerous going forward and can be solid in defense, though they did lose Ethan Amperdue to a pretty serious injury. He is their captain, their main defensive piece that they have built around, and that is going to be interesting to see how they keep that going. In this space where it's tricky because you're not in the transfer window yet. That's not until January. And it's going to be interesting to see if Leeds defense can handle a Sheffield United team that is very plotting and attack, but are also very dangerous. You cannot stop Gustavo Hammer. You cannot. They have very deadly pieces in Callum O'Hare as well, and as well as the guy from Cardiff that they got during the transfer window. Um, that would be. Um, why am I blinking on his name right now? That would be Calmo. No, not Calmo Hair. Um, Kiefer Moore. Yeah, Kiefer Moore. He is a very dangerous piece to have. He was one of their marquee signings in the transfer window. Sheffield United just has a very solid team, a very solid plan going forward. I do want to note, England did announce their manager and Thomas Tuchel um, the last couple of days, and apparently Sheffield United's manager he was very upset. He said he prefers Englishmen leading the team. That's, of course, a whole nother can of worms to get into, but it's a very interesting note. He was not happy that he did not get the job. Chris Wilder is a very interesting guy. Um, Sheffield United absolutely flopped in the Prem, and right now they're doing pretty solid for championship. Not surprising considering they are a recently relegated side who will have parachute payments where Leeds has been for the last few years in the championship. So Leeds obviously is very desperate to get back to the Prem because they cannot afford these players after this year because I believe this is the last year of their parachute payments. So very interesting game. I really could see either of these sides winning it, um, and I would not be surprised also if this ends in a draw as well. So moving on, let's head on to the Cardiff Plymouth game. These are two sides that are very in very different directions. Plymouth has been on the uptick lately, actually. They were in the relegation zone for the better part of the first part of the season, I believe, until the first international break, and then they came back, and they've been very solid defensively and have had a decent attack. Um, Cardiff, meanwhile, has been abysmal. They have a negative 14 goal differential. Plymouth doesn't have a much better one, to be fair. They have a negative 3, but they definitely have been the much more on the uprise, on the rise team of these two. And Wayne Rooney has done something with this attack. He's got his team scoring a lot more since. Um, Plymouth have scored a combined six. Have scored a lot of goals since that little early spell. They did lose to Burnley a couple of weeks ago before their win over Blackburn, where Rooney got his suspension, and then of course they beat Luton 3-1. And really, this whole run started with a 3-2 win over Sunderland, who are the table leaders at this point. So this is a very even game, I would say. Ibrahim Sissoko, he is the Plymouth leader in goals. He has 3 in 9 matches. Callum Robinson is the Cardiff leader in goals with 2 goals in 7. Um, so it's not very, their goals leader is not very different. And they both are not great at assists, with both their assist leaders of Darko Giabi for Plymouth and Ruben Colwell for Cardiff, only having 1 assist in both of them in 9 matches. Um, Cardiff is actually somehow pegged to be the favorite in this one, even though they have been incredibly abysmal at home. They conceded a ton at home. I do expect Plymouth. I would hope. You would think Plymouth would get something out of this. Um, Cardiff are in a very vulnerable position. They are bottom of the table for a reason, with their, I believe it's 5 points. Um, and yeah, this is where Cardiff was expected. Plymouth was expected to be right down there with them, and so far they were. But then they've made this rise. I wouldn't be surprised by a draw either, to be honest. But because both of these teams are underwhelming. Plymouth at most is a mid-table team on paper. Um, yeah, I would be shocked if Cardiff got all 3 points, but against the championship, so you absolutely never know what will go on in that one. Next up, we have the Lancashire Derby. We have Luton Town hosting Watford. Luton Town, they have been awful, absolutely awful. Um, since coming down from the Prem. Their last game, they lost 2-0 to Sheffield United, who we have just pegged as a very, very good team. They are in fifth place, obviously. So, yeah, they've been on a very bad run of form. They did draw 2-2 to Oxford, who have been a very surprise team at the start of the season. Watford, meanwhile, are coming off a 1-0, 2-1 win over Middlesbrough. Um, yeah, they've snatched and grabbed that one very late with some great subs at the end of that game. They are in, I believe, is sixth place. Yes, they are. They are in sixth place with 16 points. So this is a game you would think right away that Watford would win. However, this has been a game that often can be very unpredictable when these two teams um, match up. Because of course it's a derby game, and derbies results go out the window usually for those. And Luton desperately needs these points. They are floundering bad at the bottom of the table. They are right above the relegation zone at 8 points. Um, and Luton needs these points desperately. Rob Edwards desperately needs these points if he wants to keep his job. Watford, I mean, they wanted to keep this surprise start going. People didn't think they would be really good this year. They have surprised a lot of people. They have been pretty decent, if inconsistent at worst. Um, and yeah, I would not be shocked if Watford won, but at the same time, like Luton are in a desperate spot. You get a caged lion in a corner at home, things can happen. Um, Kiembe is the lead scorer for Watford with 4 goals in 8 matches. Um, and Carlton Morse is the leading scorer for Luton Town with 2 goals in 6 matches. Um, yeah, this is a team where Watford have a goal differential of nil. Luton are at -7 in the goal differential category. Watford has 14 goals to Luton's 8. Um, both have conceded quite a few goals. Luton with 15 and Watford with 14. So they both have what you could say are porous defenses. So this might be an opportunity for Luton to maybe try to get something out of this. They both don't assist the ball. They are very run at you and have players that will shoot a lot. So I would say Watford should win this if they want to keep proving they are a legit top 6 team contender. I would not be surprised if Luton try and their best to scratch and claw. It is the championship, and if they got all 3 points or a draw out of this, I would not be shocked. On to Oxford United and West Brom, a very interesting matchup between the team that is in 10th, the team that is now in 4th. They were the league leaders, West Brom, at one point before Middlesbrough came in and handed them a loss. And yeah, Oxford have been very, very surprising. They come into this game with 3 wins, 3 draws, and 3 losses. So very average, you would think. But they have been very spunky, and especially at home, they are hard to beat. Let's just say that. West Brom, meanwhile, they come into this at 5 wins, 2 losses, 2 draws. They have been on a tailspin of late. West Brom coming into this off of a 0-0 draw at home versus Millwall. Oxford come into this game with a 1-1 draw against one of the relegation fodder teams in Portsmouth. A 1-1 draw there. Is it at Oxford, like I said, leading scorer for West Brom. He has been the Golden Boot leader for so far in the championship. Josh Maja, the former Sunderland man, with 7 goals in 9 matches. Mark Harris leads Oxford with 4 goals in 9 matches. So both have decent strikers coming into this game. Um, both have a very even amount of goals for, and Oxford does, on paper, have the worst defensive. They have 11 goals against to West Brom 6. West Brom has especially been clinical on defense at home, only having allowed the 1 goal to Middlesbrough over the last midweek game they had. So West Brom have really relied heavily on uh, Josh Maja to be their main man. They are looking for a way to spark, and this could be a way to do it. Prove themselves against a team that has come out of nowhere. People thought it would be bad. Having just been promoted from League One through the playoffs. Oxford, they're a scrappy bunch. If West Brom continue to play like they have the last 3 games or so, I could easily see Oxford sneaking out a point or two, especially at home where they have been very consistently strong and stubborn to beat. Um, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if West Brom also find their magic form again and start scoring again and showing why they are one of the better teams in the championship. Because on paper they are. They have a lot of the pieces to be very good offensively and defensively, especially like Tom Fellows. He is a young, up and coming, bright star, and also Mikey Johnston, the former Celtic man, as well, being a very good presence in the attack. Um, so this is a game West Brom should win. I would not be surprised though if it being at Oxford do snatch some points. Um, yeah, this could be a very fascinating one. Preston versus Coventry, two teams that are shockingly, you know, Preston usually a mid-table team in the championship. Both are near the bottom of the table this year. Coventry has had their typical slow start. Uh, Preston is at 19th with their 9 points. Coventry is at 8 points and 20th. These are two teams that have been very meh, and this is famously coming into this game. Preston is very much known as the bogey team for Coventry. Coventry has not won a Deepdale since I believe it's 2000. So this is a game that they really cannot win to save their lives. Um, and they come into this game needing a win. They need the win. Coventry does because they've had some good results lately. They're coming off of a 2-1 loss to Sheffield United at home in the CBS, which a game they needed. They had the lead for most of it until Sheffield United did their typical thing this year and score late to win. Um, Haji Wright is their lead scorer for Coventry for 3 goals in 9 matches. Uh, Milutin Osmajic, he is the lead scorer for Preston North End. He will not be playing this game because he is suspended for the fighting incident against Blackburn. Um, I believe this is the second game he will be out of the 8. He has 2 goals in 7 matches, and both of those, I believe, are in the game against Watford. So it'll be interesting to see. Preston are much better at home in Deepdale than they are on the road. Both teams have not scored a ton of goals and have allowed a lot. They are very similar in both categories, and as well as the goal differential that shows. Coventry has a -3 goal difference to Preston's -5. Um, and yeah, I mean, you would think with Coventry, they have all the attacking pieces. They have Brandon Thomas Asante. They have the 2 guys that were the cog of their attack, the Haji Wrights and the Ellis, Sims of their team. They also did add Ephraim Mason Clark over the transfer window. He's also a vital piece. You have guys like Milan Van Ewijk who are solid defensive right backs or well fullbacks. They're the solid fullbacks. And yeah, this is a team that on paper Coventry should be top 6. Um, they come to this game 2 wins, 2 losses, 2 wins, 2 draws, 5 losses, and Preston come into this with 2 wins, 3 draws, 4 losses. So these are very even teams. If the tradition keeps going, I would not be shocked if Preston won and continued what has been a very miserable start to the year for Coventry. Though this is also the time of year that Coventry start to get going, so if they follow that train of form, they might be able to get their first win at Deepdale in almost 30 years, which is insane to say. Um, so let's move on to Blackburn Swansea. Blackburn have had a very surprising start. They've kind of started to falter off a bit. They lost to Plymouth. Their last loss was to Plymouth, 2-1 on the road at Plymouth. Very weird game that was. And then Swansea, they just came off of a 0-0 draw to Stoke. Swansea are meh. They're not a great. They're mid-table, kind of where they usually are. Liam Collins, their league scorer, 2 goals in 6 matches. Yuki Yohashi is their league scorer for Blackburn with 4 goals in 9 matches. Uh, they did lose the championship's golden boot guy and Sammy Smock's tip switch over the transfer window, so that's hurt their attack. This is a fixture that has been very iffy on both sides, where they often swap. And Blackburn statistically has the much better stats in everything except for goals against. Blackburn has 15 goals for, 11 goals against, to Swansea's 8 for, 6 against. Um, so 4 goal differential of 4 for Blackburn, goal differential of 2 for Swansea. It's a very free flowing style that John Eustace likes to play at Blackburn. They like to score. They like to play very similar to Leeds, I think. Swansea are very much more a solid defense. They try to play defense to attack, um, as they kind of usually do. Um, they come into this game, Swansea do, with 3 wins, 3 draws, 3 losses. Blackburn coming to this with 4 wins, 3 draws, 2 losses. They started off very hot. They've kind of started to falter since. I would not be surprised if this was a draw. Blackburn should win this if they keep on the form they've been early this season, but it's the championship. Things can turn very quickly on a dime for teams, and yeah, both teams would love a win in this one to get back on track. Millwall Derby County is next. Millwall kind of been on a surge of late. They did have the 0-0 draw at West Brom. That's not very often you see teams coming out of the Hawthorns with points. Derby coming into this game, their record shows what kind of team they are this year. You're either going to get a win or you're going to get a loss out of them. They just came off of a 2-0 win at QPR. QPR being one of the teams in the relegation zone. Um, Millwall are mid-table. I believe they are. Yeah, they are 18th. These are not. Derby is in 12th. Um, Millwall thought they were coming back up, and then they kind of faltered again. Back in their usual spot, mid-table area. Derby, of course, being promoted from League One last year automatically. Um, the leading scorer for Millwall, 5 goals in 9 matches for Duncan Watmore. He has been very good. One of the best scorers in the championship this year, and he's still doing it at a very an older age for a footballer. Curtis Nelson is the leading scorer for Derby County, 2 goals in 9 matches. Um, Derby is a very much rugged team that likes to play very defensively. Millwall, kind of the similar. They both have scored 12 goals. They both have allowed a lot of goals. Millwall, slightly better goal differential because they've allowed 1 less goal than Derby. Um, they do have the +1 goal differential. And these are teams, again, I mean, they will create chances, but they like to play very rugged defensively and beat you on the counterattack. And yeah, that kind of to me spells a very ugly draw. Uh, Maybe 0-0. I could see that happening 1-1 maybe. I also could see either of these teams sneaking a point because they need the points. Obviously, they're both on opposite sides of the table. Millwall needs the points to keep themselves above the relegation zone. Derby wants to keep in the contention for the top 10. I don't think top 10 is an unrealistic expectation for how Derby have been, even though they are very hot and cold. But I could easily see them also faltering off and falling off in the race. So this is going to be a very interesting game if you're a sicko and like to tune into these kinds of games, the nil-nils, which I kind of am in the sense. You will be very intrigued, I think. Moving on to another game that could be a sicko game, QPR Portsmouth. Both teams in the relegation zone. QPR, like I just said, they came off the 2-0 loss to Derby County. Portsmouth, meanwhile, they came off of the 1-1 draw to Oxford, I believe. Yes, the 1-1 draw at home to Oxford. Portsmouth, they've been awful. They they are definitely one of the worst teams, even though Cardiff is technically the worst. They're right there with Cardiff. 3 goals in 6 matches for Callum Lang of Portsmouth. Meanwhile, Michael Frey is the leading scorer for QPR, 3 goals, 9 matches. The stats kind of back up where both of these teams are. That both of these teams are pretty bad. 9 goals for, 16 and 20 goals against. QPR does have the slight advantage of the goal difference with -7 to -11 for Portsmouth. Um, I do believe QPR is a better team than their record shows. They are 1 win, 4 draws, and 4 losses. Portsmouth has not had a win yet. They have had no wins, 5 draws, 4 losses. They can very much get you into an ugly game, and Portsmouth can, and get a draw out of you if they can stoop you down to their level, make you work for it, and they can get you into their low block press game that they like to play. QPR wants to be a counterattack team. They want to be, and they have the talent to be decent, much better than what they are now, but they just haven't put the pieces together. And it's shown, and they need help. And I would favor slightly QPR to win this game because how bad Portsmouth is. But I wouldn't be shocked at all if this was a draw either. Um, let's move on to Sheffield Wednesday versus Burnley. Two teams that are kind of interesting to look at. Sheffield Wednesday is very much a roller coaster team. They either win or they lose dramatically, or they draw like they did against Bristol City a couple of games ago. They did come off a win though, to be fair, against Coventry, where they snatched the point at the very end to win 2-1 at Coventry. Like I said earlier, Burnley coming off a very ugly 0-0 draw to Preston. They're one of their rivals, geographically speaking. Um, this could be an interesting game, I think. Burnley are a team that do not concede a ton of goals. They are very good defensively. Um, they are in the top 6 for a reason. I believe they are second. They are third. That's right. They are third with 18 points. Meanwhile, Sheffield Wednesday are at 15th with 11 points. Um, Goal differentials, Burnley has a +10 to Sheffield Wednesday's -4. This is, I mean, Sheffield Wednesday are pegged by a lot to be top 10 this year. They very well could be. I see them more mid-table, kind of how it's shaking up right now. It is still very early doors with all of these things, obviously. Sheffield Wednesday come into this with 3 wins, 2 draws, 4 losses. Burnley, meanwhile, come into this with 5 wins, 3 draws, and a loss. One of the complaints often you see about Burnley is they only score like a goal in their wins. I think they've only scored a goal in their last 3 or 4 games. It's ugly for them. They like to play a very ugly defensive style of ball that gets you, and it works for the most part. Until sometimes people catch them on counterattack. Uh, yeah, it shows they've only allowed 4 goals all year. Sheffield Wednesday have allowed 15. Um, Burnley, you would think should win this. But they also play a very similar. They try to play a very similar style to Burnley, but a little bit more open, I would say. They like to try to get at you with Barry Bannon and Josh Windass. Um, yeah, Burnley should win this. It is at Sheffield Wednesday though, and them being at home, they always do better at home. Sheffield Wednesday does, so I would not be shocked if they get a draw or a win out of this, like a 1-1 draw. I could very easily see happening. Um, but if Burnley want to keep their top 6, especially their automatic hopes alive, they need to win this kind of game. That's a away game that they probably need more than 1 goal to win. So, because Sheffield Wednesday are pretty plucky when it comes to that kind of thing, as we've seen all year. Um, Moving on to a game that feels like a very easy game to look at and predict. It is Norwich City at Stoke. These are two teams that are opposite directions. Stoke, have fired their sacked their manager a couple of weeks ago. Um, they looked like they were in a bit of a run of form, and then they've kind of collapsed. They have not been on form lately. They are coming off of a 0-0 draw against Swansea, and that was on the back of a 6-1 drilling of Portsmouth in midweek. Meanwhile, Norwich City are coming off another great win, 4-0, the thrashing of Hull at home. This is not at Norwich, though, so they might actually be vulnerable slightly. Tom Cannon is the league scorer for Stoke, 4 goals in 5 matches. All of those came in the Portsmouth game. Boria Sons, look out for him. He is tied with Josh Madden for the most goals in the championship with 7 in 9 matches. He is on a tear, and he cannot stop scoring. Now, granted, we're coming off the international break, so everything could probably change. Who knows? But this is the last international break of the calendar year, so that should be very interesting to see how that goes. Norwich are a much more free scoring team than Stoke. Stoke like to muck it up and play defensively usually, and hit you on the counterattack. They do have pieces. Tyrese Campbell, um, May Yun Ho, Million Manhoif. They have pieces, but Norwich do too. They have, of course, Josh Sargent is the headliner there. Marcelo Nunez, and of course Boris Sons on the attack. They have Callum Doyle, the midfield. They have Kenny McLean in the defensive area. They have great players all over the pitch, and Norwich should win this. This should be a close game. Norwich can or should take advantage of the slightly inconsistent form that Stoke are on right now. Uh, but it's the championship. You can never tell. Like I keep saying, I feel like I'm a broken record on that. But it is a game that Norwich should win. Um, and then the final game of the weekend is Hull versus Sunderland. This is going to be a game that, you know, Sunderland come off of a win, I believe it is, against. No, it was a draw. They come off the 2-2 draw to Leeds, actually. Um, yeah, that was a weird game. But they are definitely the league leaders for a reason. They have 6 wins, 1 draw, 2 losses. Meanwhile, Hull are the definition of mid-table, and that shows in the table. 3 wins, 3 draws, 3 losses. They cannot find consistent form to save their lives. Um, they like I just said a moment ago, they came off a 4-0 thrashing at the hands of Norwich. Um, I would not be surprised if more of the same, or if Hull find their form again at home and somehow turn on the switch in the attack. Because they have come before that 4-0 thrashing, they were actually coming off a decent run. They had just beaten Stoke. They had a win over QPR. It looked like their attack was finally grinding into gear, and then it stopped abruptly. Um, they have a goal differential of -1, not helped by the 4-0 loss. Uh, Sunderland have a +10 goal differential. They are not as good on the road. Um, I believe we've documented earlier in this earlier episode they have a stellar record at home where they had not dropped points until the Leeds game, and that was their first draw at home, which is incredible. To start off the year. Sunderland should win this. They have all the talent in the world. Romain Mundle is their leading scorer at 3 goals in 9 matches. For a whole, their leading scorer is 2 goals in 7. Christian Badia, I should say. He's got he hasn't played as much, but yeah, this is a game that I could easily be wrong, but I would think Sunderland should win. It is the championship though, so do not be surprised by anything. So yeah, that is pitch side. Um, Let us head to the week 7 action and the news. There has been a lot of news since our last episode. Amari Cooper was traded to the Bills not minutes after the last episode was posted. Um, yeah, this is a huge trade for the Bills. They needed this because having lost Stephon Diggs, they wanted to get a number one. It kind of showed they needed a number one receiver. Um, yeah, it's a very interesting trade. It was a pick swap, I believe, for Cooper. Um, the Bills got Amari Cooper in a 2025 sixth rounder. Cleveland gets 2 picks actually, a 2025 third round pick and a 2026 seventh rounder. Bills are obviously getting all the plots for this as they get a guy that has been very reliable in his career. Coming out of Alabama, he started as um, a very hot prospect. He did so well as a Cowboy, and then he was a Raider before that, and then he came to the Browns, and he was good last year. And this year, I do want to point something out that has not often been mentioned, especially in the media. He does have a very significant high drop rate. I believe it's 20.6 drop percentage. So he is, and that's when a lot of them have been wide open. I believe there has been some footage like on social media that shows that. Overall, if Cooper can come into the form he's been in consistently throughout his career, this should not be a problem, and it should be a huge boost for the Bills and their offense. Even though the offense has been pretty decent this season, it's not been awful. It hasn't been great though, and I think the Bills thought they just needed the number ones who kind of smooth out the rough edges of that offense and get Josh Allen a number one because he's always better when he has a number one target. Um, I don't know if it makes them instant Super Bowl contenders. I would say it definitely improves them though, and I would say it definitely puts them in a more solid position to contend for the division crown and probably the number one seed in the AFC. And the other trade that happened the other day was the Vikings trade for Cam Akers again with the Texans. Vikings get back their running back they had a couple of years ago. They traded for him when he was with the Rams. Was let go, and he went to the Texans, and he is now back with the Vikings. The Vikings get Cam Akers, obviously, and a 2026 conditional seventh round pick. I don't know exactly how far up that can go. It might be a fifth. Like for those who don't know, conditional picks are based a lot of times on incentives or how well you perform. Those can go up. Those picks can go up from so. This is a seventh rounder. It could go up as high as maybe a fifth. Who knows? In the draft, it all depends on some contract usually, or some agreement that the teams have on. Oh, this can go up depending on this. Like Devontae Adams, for example, his was a conditional third that can go up to a second based on what is reported as a ton of heavy play-based incentives. So the better he plays, the better that pick becomes for the Raiders. Um, it's very similar here with the Vikings giving the Texans with the Vikings getting this pick from the Texans, and the Texans getting a 2025 conditional sixth rounder. So this is I mean this you know it's a solid trade. I think Texans. I don't know why they got rid of him. He was their backup for so long with Mixon out. Mixon having coming back, I think Texans just thought, oh, he's a little bit of surplus requirements, and the Vikings needed some help in the running back room with Aaron Jones out with a shoulder injury, and they don't know how long he's going to be out. So they probably just thought, oh, we'll get some additional help in the running back room. So it's a win-win, I think, for both sides, even though it felt kind of like a bizarre out of nowhere trade. But hey, if it helps both teams, it helps both teams. So yeah, let's get to the games now. Broncos and Saints is tonight's game on Thursday night. It is a very interesting matchup. Broncos coming to this 3-3. Saints coming into this 2-4. Broncos, they were on and then they came off the 23-16 loss to the Chargers on Sunday. Um, this was after a very good stretch of games where they beat the Raiders and the Jets and the Bucks to go from 1-2 to from 0-2 to 3-2 to 3-3 again. So it's a very streaky Broncos team. I think we're gonna see. The Saints are injured to hell and back. They have so many injuries, and you feel bad for them because uh, yeah, we learned this week that Chris Olave probably will not play this week with, I believe, a concussion. Rashid Shaheed, the main downfield target for the Saints, he is out with a meniscus surgery, having been done, I believe, today. Um, that I believe that will determine how long he is out. I believe there's a possibility he could be out for the end of the year. So yeah, that just hurts because that's two pieces of the offense that now is led by Spencer Rattler, and Alvin Kamara is the center focus of this offense now. And this is I don't know the status of Pat Surtain. I don't know if he's going to be available for this game. If he is, that would be a huge boost for the Broncos because he's the cornerstone of that defense. But I would not expect this to be. I would not be surprised if this is a Sean Payton revenge game as well. By the way, I would not be surprised if the Broncos come in and win this game. It could get ugly fast. If Spencer Rattler makes this a game, I'm going to be pretty impressed because he had a decent stat line actually against the Bucks, even in the loss. Um, so yeah, this could be a very interesting game. It could get ugly quick. It could be entertaining. You never know. The last couple of Thursday night games have actually not been bad. So yeah, stay tuned if you want. This could be very interesting. Bo Nix coming into this game, definition of kind of mid, 5 touchdowns, 5 picks. Yeah, I would expect this to be a very defensive slugfest game with both offenses kind of meh, and the Saints are not as injured. They still have some injuries on the defense. They're not as injured though on that side of the ball. Yeah, I would say whoever's offense gets going quicker first probably wins this game. I would not be shocked if that was the Broncos. Um, yeah, but Alvin Kamara is a very special talent. You do not want to go against him either. Um, yeah, and I think a lot of people in the odds are kind of showing that it's kind of a pick'em game. Broncos are favored by 3. Um, this is at New Orleans, and that's yeah. It kind of shows that people think the Broncos are going to win. It's a very injury depleted team, so I would not be shocked, but also I wouldn't be shocked if the Saints are also kind of desperate as well. It becomes a caged cat game. So let's move on to the next game. Is the toilet bowl kind of game. The Patriots and Jaguars both come into this desperate for a win. Both are 1-5. Um, it's yeah, these teams are bad. Jaguars coming off the loss to the Bears, also in London, and the Patriots coming off the 20-point loss to the Texans in Drake May's debut. Both of these teams are um, banged up as all get out. They Jags should win this. This should be a Jags win because they have a much better D line. Um, Going up against a very weak Patriots O line. Drake May is again, I think, starting for the Patriots. He didn't play bad against the Texans. Actually, I thought he played pretty well, stat wise, and he made a few good throws. Looking at his highlights and stuff, um, but I wouldn't be shocked if the Jags won this in a somewhat comfortable fashion. This is in London, like I think I said. Jags do have a Welsh player coming back to the UK, so that's kind of interesting to see how much he will play. This is a spread where the Jags are favored by 4.5. I could see less than that, maybe a 1 point game. Uh, Demario Douglas comes into this game as the lead receiver for the Patriots with 24 catches, 245 yards, and a touchdown. Ryan Thomas has 25 catches, 424 yards, and a touchdown. These are these are teams that like to depend on the run. Right, I believe Ramondre Stevenson is still out for the Patriots. Yeah, the Jags should win this, and if they do not, I would expect Doug Pearson to not be in Jacksonville on the plane when the plane lands in Jacksonville back from London. Um, Next up, Titans Bills. Titans just coming off the 2017 loss to the Colts and Bills. Like I just said, they got Amari Cooper. I would expect to see him in this game probably, and yeah, the Bills should win this. The Titans are meh, and they they cannot get a lot of things going. Their defense is decent. They have good pass rush. Um, But yeah, this is kind of a. They're also kind of injured as well. The Titans are on both sides of the ball. Will Levis has been kind of meh as well. He has not been great. Um, and Josh Allen has been perfect so far. He's still not thrown a pick. Um, but I believe I don't know. James Cook was out Monday night against the Jets, and Ray Davis took over that game for the Bills, and was single-handedly one of the main reasons they won that game. Um, yeah, this could be very ugly very quick, uh, especially if Will Levis keeps playing meh. Um, and yeah, this I'm very interested to see if you're fascinated to see something about this. You want to watch how good the Bills' offense will be now that Mari Cooper is on that team. And yeah, I would not be shocked if the Bills won this rather comfortably. They are favored by 8.5, and I think that kind of also reflects what others think about that as well. A good game this week, Texans Packers. This will be a very fun game. I think two teams that are very on the rise in both of their conferences. C.J. Stroud versus Jordan Love. C.J. Stroud has 10 touchdowns, 4 picks off 1,577 yards completed. Um, Jordan Love, he is come back from the injury and been kind of inconsistent, but also he has been solid as well. 1,131 yards, 12 touchdowns, 6 picks. So he's not been awful. Joe Mixon came back last week and showed out. He had a great game. Um, Josh Jacobs is still kind of trying to find his footing, but he's starting to get there. Got 106 carries, 464 yards, and a touchdown. They are without, I believe, Dontavian Wicks. So this should be interesting because, you know, the Packers like to pass a lot and they like to fool you with, who's going to be playing. I don't know if Christian Watson's going to be playing. That would be interesting. If he is, that could be huge. Because also, yeah, another thing we learned this week, Mario Edwards is suspended for 4 games with a PED, substance abuse violation. So he will be out for this game for the Texans defense. Both come into this game. Texans come into this 5-1. Packers 4-2. This is at Lambeau. Um, this could probably be the game of the week. Um, Packers are favored by 3.5, and this is going to be fun. I think two offenses with the two defenses that can be very opportunistic. Packers are one of the league leaders, I believe, in takeaways. Xavier McKinney is, of course, the leader of the Packers defense. He had a streak. I think his streak was broken against the Cardinals. But he had a streak of 4 of a pick per game until last week. So that shows you how good he is this year so far. Yeah, I would expect this to be a very close game. I would not be surprised if either team won this. Packers need this to stay in contention with the South, with the rest of their division. The Bears, the Vikings, and the Lions all kind of just starting to mesh together. Vikings, of course, lead the division, but the Lions and Bears are right behind them, breathing down their necks. And the Packers want to stay right in that little pack. Texans, meanwhile, are in charge of a division that is kind of weird and kind of all over the place. And they're the only good team in that division so far. Has shown consistency, and they want to keep that stranglehold on it, and I'm sure they will. But um, yeah, this is a game to show where they are, measuring stick really to see where both of these teams are in terms of contending for the ultimate prize that is the Super Bowl. The next game up, Eagles Giants. It's a divisional rivalry with a lot of history in this. Eagles coming in 3-2, Giants 2-4. Eagles coming off the ugly win over Cleveland, but a win's a win. At the end of the day, Giants coming off a heartbreaking kind of loss to the Bengals when they had the game for a minute and then they didn't, and just kind of let it go in the end. Nick Sirianni he apologized for the outburst he had against the fans after the Cleveland game. This is a game Philly should win quite comfortably. Daniel Jones is still playing decent. He has 6 touchdowns, 4 picks with 1,343 yards. They are hoping that Malik Neighbors will be back for this game for the concussion, but they're going to give him a long, tight leash. And I wouldn't be shocked if he's a game time decision. The Eagles are getting healthy again, and that could be scary. That could not be. Jalen Hurts has 1,194 yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 picks. Saquon has 91 carries, 492 yards, 4 touchdowns. He is going to be the leader of that Eagles offense. And now that A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith are back healthy, this could be a massacre of immense proportions. And it should be. But will it? Because it's a division game. And you never know with these division games. You really don't. Um, Eagles are favored by 3.5 on the road. I could see that being the case in a close game, but I could also see a grisly blowout that just it might put Brian Daboll's seat on absolute full nuclear blast, and that would be ugly. So, yeah, you feel bad because last week you saw he was trying to win the game. He just doesn't have the players or enough players to just get it done. So, yeah, if Eagles should win this comfortably. Lions Vikings also is probably a game of the week. Lions, I think I casually mentioned this earlier. Lions come into this 4-1 actually. The Vikings 5-0, so correct my earlier mistake of they had 2 losses. They only have one to the Bucks. This is for the division. It really is because these two are at the top, with the Bears and Packers kind of just really gunning for those two. And yeah, this should be fun. Both have great defenses, good offenses that have great players. Yeah, Jared Goff, he has 1,330 yards, 8 touchdowns, 4 picks. Sam Darnold has very similar numbers, 1,111 yards, 11 touchdowns, 4 picks. The Lions love to hit you on the ground, and that's with David Montgomery carrying 75 times for 351 yards, 6 touchdowns. And the Vikings got back Cam Akers for this very reason, I think, because of Aaron Jones probably not playing in this game. Of course, the Vikings have one of the best receivers of the game, Justin Jefferson, 26 receptions, 460 yards, 4 touchdowns. And Jameson Williams is the receiving leader for the Lions, surprisingly, not Amon Ra. He has 16 catches, 365 yards, 3 touchdowns. These are two teams I think that are incredibly evenly matched. I would not be shocked whoever wins this game. Um, Whoever wins it wins it because these are both great teams. Defenses that are very opportunistic when they want to be. I kind of slightly like the Vikings defense slightly more just because they have a pass rush that can be very aggressive. Um, and the Lions did lose Aiden Hutchinson. This could be a huge factor in this game because he is he's the Lions' soul and spirit on that pass rush, and I would be fascinated to see how they get after Darnold without their stud pass rusher on the edge. And also, he sets the edge very well, run defense. So this could be huge. Both teams like to play action and burn you deep. Um, I would say whoever scores probably 24 more points probably wins this game. Uh, but I could also see it being incredibly low scoring. It could be watch it be like 13-10 now that I've said versus 24 wins. Um, but it's just such an unpredictable game. But that's part of the beauty of the NFL when you get these kind of matchups. You never know. I believe, yeah, the Vikings are actually carrying a 2.5 point favorite. They are at home, so that's probably a huge reason why. Um, yeah, Detroit's going to come into this saying, "Oh, we're still pretty good even without Hutch." I would not be shocked if they did come in and win that game as well. So, yeah, this is going to be such a fun game. I'm really looking forward to seeing who wins this and how it shakes out because this is going to be early doors telling you who's better in the division. And the winner gets the leg up. If the Vikings win, they will be 6-0. They will have a stranglehold in the division. because they'll have the tiebreaker of Detroit, and Detroit will be 2 games back, plus the tiebreaker to Minnesota. So, both of these teams want that tiebreaker at the end of the year because these are probably the two that'll be at the top. Whoever loses will probably get the higher playoff seeding. Um, looking forward to that one. Seahawks Falcons is next. They are also this is also kind of a interesting game in terms of um, two teams that are kind of one team's trying to find themselves, the other's starting to find their groove. Falcons coming off a huge win last week over the Panthers that they kind of scraped through, they clawed through, but that's what contenders do, especially in their division. Therefore, too, the Seahawks have lost 3 straight after going 3-0. They are 3-3 at this point, and the Falcons have a pretty good defense going up against Geno Smith, who has 1,778 yards, 6 touchdowns, 6 picks. He has not been the Geno of last year. Uh, Kirk Cousins has had a pretty decent year. 1,598 yards, 9 touchdowns, 5 picks. He has not been awful. He hasn't been spectacular, but he hasn't been awful either. And he's been pretty solid. That's kind of what you expect out of Kirk Cousins, to be honest. And the Falcons cover this game. I think they are the favorites in this. They are in a lot of the books. They're 2.5 favorites coming in this. They are 2-2 at home. Seahawks are 1-1 away. This could be a fun matchup if both start scoring a lot. I just don't see it because the Falcons, I think, have a pretty solid secondary. And if Kenneth Walker can't get going, the Seahawks are doomed. And I could see easily Matthew Judon, Grady Jarrett, and all of them just swallowing Kenneth Walker alive. And if the Seahawks pull it off, I would be very impressed. And that would be a huge confidence booster, I think, to that squad. Um, this could be a fun, solid game if you're looking for something to look at. Don't have much else going on. So, Bengals, Browns. Bengals should win this. Bengals should win this. Browns just traded Amari Cooper. They are awful offensively. We all know the stats. 0-25 on third down. They are inept. Deshaun Watson has not thrown a lot of touchdowns. He's 1,020, 5 touchdowns, 3 picks. Joe Burrow still on his god tier mode of MVP numbers on a bad defensive team. 1,578 yards, 12 touchdowns, 2 picks. Both came off of very ugly games, one on each extreme. Bengals off of an ugly 17-7 win over the Giants, where they just couldn't get anything going offensively until a garbage time touchdown. Cleveland coming off an ugly game where they did not score an offensive touchdown, but they almost beat the Eagles. And I feel like that's going to be huge. Jerome Ford will not be playing in this game. I don't know who's going to be the running back in this situation for the Browns. But now Jerry Jeudy is the receiving leader for this Browns team. And if the Bengals defense plays like they did last week against the Giants, they should win this easily. If they don't, and they play like the Bengals defensive all year, this could be a interesting game. Bengals have all the superior talent on offense. The Browns defense can be solid though, and they have been able to keep the offense in games. It's just the offense can't do anything on their side of the ball. So this is the division game. Joe Burrow has kind of had a bugaboo against the Browns all his career. Both teams need this win. Browns really need this just to get morale back. Bengals want this win to get back in the playoff discussion. They want to before this very brutal stretch of games coming up for them that could determine their season. This is crucial for both. If the Bengals lose this, season's probably over. I think it would be very hard to not say that, especially with the stretch of games they have coming up. Bengals are favored by 4.5, and I think that kind of shows how close this could be as a division game, but also this could be ugly. So there's so many possibilities, but Bengals should win this. Going on to the Dolphins Colts, that's an injury bowl waiting to happen. Dolphins are 3-3, coming off a bye. Colts are also 3-3. They came off a huge win over the Titans last week. I believe Anthony Richardson is going to be playing this week for the Colts. That could be huge. I think they're finally starting to get healthy on the offensive side. The defensive side is still kind of a mess for the Colts. Dolphins are nowhere near healthy, and it shows. They are 2-3, I should say. Um, yeah, this could be ugly. The Colts have not really been great defensively. Um, I believe it's still going to be Huntley playing quarterback for the Dolphins, and yeah, this is actually Joe Flacco has been playing bad. Just looking at his numbers: 716 yards, 7 touchdowns, and a pick. He's been a great game manager for them, and now they're hoping their young quarterback can come back and keep them in a playoff contention because that's what they are right now. They are not going to probably contend for the division unless the Texans start falling apart again, um, like they almost did last year. Um, it'll be very interesting to see how Anthony Richardson does his first game back. This could be ugly game. I could easily see this being 17-13. Colts. I do think the Colts will win. Um, yeah, the Dolphins are just so injured, and you feel bad for them because their fans because this was a team that was expected to do a lot this year, and until Tua comes back, I don't think they're going to do much. And yeah, this could be ugly quick. It also could be a very close game as well. Um, but I would expect the Colts to win by at least more than 4 points. So, Panthers Commanders, not much to say about this one. Commanders came off the loss to the Ravens last week, 30-23. Panthers came off another loss to the Falcons, 38-20. Commanders look pretty good, and they showed it last week. Almost going toe to toe. They just let the Ravens get a little more gas ahead of them than they could muster, and that's okay. Can't win them all. I do like the Commanders in this matchup a lot. Panthers are not great. Andy Dalton's starting to show, you know, kind of what he does with his backup roles. He starts great, then kind of starts to fade out a bit. It shows. Just they have some talent on offense, they just don't have enough. And the Commanders, even though their defense is bad, it is not great. They showed last week, but I think it could do the job enough, and they have a high-powered offense that can stave the Panthers away. Raiders Rams, kind of a weird game. Rams coming off a bye last week. Raiders coming off I believe, yeah, it was a very ugly loss to the Steelers. Um, yeah, this should be a very interesting game. Both teams needing a win to stay alive. Rams are 2-4. Raiders are 1-4. The Raiders are 2-4. Um, you would think the Rams should win this. They have a lot of good stuff going on offense for them sometimes. I believe Cooper Kupp is expected to play this week if everything goes right. So that would be a huge boost to the Rams offense. They have missed him a lot. Uh, Stafford has 1,238 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks for the Rams. Raiders have Gardner Minshew. I think Aiden O'Connell might be starting. I don't think anyone knows this week who is starting quarterback for the Raiders. If Aiden O'Connell starts, this could be ugly quick. Um, Rams have a decent defense who can keep them in games, just not long enough. But this is the Raiders. Um, I would expect, yeah, I would expect them without Devontae Adams now. I mean, now officially, even though he hasn't been playing for 2 straight weeks, this is going to be a take job fast, I think, for the Raiders. And I think the Rams should win this quite easily, especially since it's at home. They are favored by 5.5. I could see this being closer because the Raiders do have talent on defense, but I would not be shocked if it was a 7-point win or something more than that. Jets Steelers is Sunday Night Football this week. Um, Aaron Rodgers gets his new toy to show off on Sunday night. Devontae Adams. Um, he. This should be interesting because the Jets want to show immediately they are much better. Now that They got Adams on the offense. You know, you have a quarterback who's blaming kickers and Mike Williams for his losses instead of, every time he gets the ball in his hands, he chokes. Um, he's playing a team in the Steelers that, they got a much needed win last week over the Raiders. Um, Steelers have a good defense. Jets have a decent defense. It's going to be which offense. I believe Russell Wilson is actually on track to start this week, in this game against the Jets. That could be interesting to see how he does in his debut start at home after replacing Justin Fields, who was doing pretty well for himself this year. 5 touchdowns and a pick and a lot of rushing touchdowns. Um, I believe whoever can get the running game going quicker and can utilize the receivers better, I would think that you would think that would be the Jets, but also I wouldn't be shocked if the Steelers kept it close. This could be an interesting back and forth game. Do look for it to be something like 23-21 because the defenses are both decent for these teams. That they could keep both of their offenses in it. If it stalls, their offenses stall. Um, but yeah, this could be a good game. It also could be a weird, ugly snooze fest as well. You never know, but both teams want this win. Jets especially to keep themselves alive in terms of playoffs, in terms of division. Steelers just want to keep ahead of the Ravens. That's all they want. They want to be right there with for the division race. The Ravens, who are both 4-2 right now, the Ravens are, and yeah, this should be a fun matchup. And also, I wouldn't be shocked if also I slept through this game. Ravens and Bucks on Monday night. It's a doubleheader once again. Um, for Monday night, Ravens and Bucks is a very fascinating matchup. You've got the Ravens who came off their win over the Commanders, impressive win. Bucks coming off a very impressive 51-27 statistical thrashing of the Saints. Um, yeah, these are two teams that are trying to show how good they are in the contending spot. And right now, the Ravens are favored by 4.5. Lamar Jackson is still on his MVP numbers: 10 touchdowns, 2 picks, 1,529 yards. Meanwhile, Baker also has MVP numbers: 1,489 yards, 15 touchdowns, 5 picks. I believe Sean Tucker was called the starter this week for the Bucks at running back after his great performance last week against the Saints. Um, Derrick Henry, of course, still Derrick Henry, 119 carries, 704 yards, 8 touchdowns. One of the best backs to ever do it. Yeah, this could be a fun game. Both teams have defenses that are solid but not great. Um, both offenses are deadly and can be very destructive. I would not be surprised if this is a shootout. Because both love to get into a shootout. Um, but at the same time, yeah, I would not be shocked if this was like a 37-33 win for someone. It's hard for me to pick a favorite for this because both of these teams are so good this year. They're both 4-2. They're very even on both sides of the ball. Um, I think it's going to come down to if Derrick Henry gets going or if the Bucks passing game could keep up with the Ravens. If if the Bucks could keep up and this goes into the fourth quarter, it's in Tampa. I wouldn't be shocked if Tampa could maybe pull this off last minute. I really wouldn't be shocked. Because Tampa is that good on offense for the most part, and the Ravens they can be up and down on offense. I'm looking forward to this game a lot. It excites me just seeing this because both teams are so good, and yeah, this is the game, one of the games of the week, and we've got several this week. We've got I think like 3 or 4 this week. That's awesome. So really looking forward to that one. Not looking forward to the last game of the week. That's Chargers Cardinals. Um, yeah, that's kind of a downer after just talking about the Ravens Bucks. Um, Chargers come in this game with a close shave, winning after being up 23-0, scraping by the Broncos 23-16. Meanwhile, the Cardinals coming off a beatdown, a very disappointing loss after beating the Niners. They get beat up by the Packers in Lambeau. Yeah, it kind of showed last week what I was saying about Will Hernandez being out, and that hurts the Cardinals a lot. Um, both of these teams have talent on both sides of the ball. Um, I don't know if Marvin Harrison's going to be playing. He did have a concussion in the game last week with the Broncos, with the Packers, I should say. This could be a interesting game. It could also be an absolute snooze fest. Both teams love to run the ball, dominate possession. Uh, that's Jim Harbaugh style, and it's Jonathan Gannon style because he's a defensive coach. Well, both are defensive coaches. I could see this being like a 17-14 game at the end, where the Chargers get a late field goal to win it. I do think the Chargers are the favorites in this. Yeah, they don't have spectacular talent on offense, but they get it done. They have J.K. Dobbins, who is their leader on offense, in my opinion. Justin Herbert hasn't been bad either. He's got 15 yards, 6 touchdowns, and a pick. He's done pretty well for himself. Kyler hasn't done bad for himself either. 1,186 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 2 picks. J.K. Dobbins, whoever gets this run game going, and I expect it to be the Chargers quickly, because the Cardinals do not have a defense that can tackle well yet. Um, J.K. Dobbins has 438 yards, 3 touchdowns. James Conner has very similar stats: 90 carries, 403 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So it's not far off, in terms of talent on the offensive side. I just think the Chargers just have the tiny bit more firepower to get this through and get their 4th win of the year in the books. So yeah, that kind of ends the grid side preview for the NFL's Week 7 action. I do really quick want to go back to pitch side. In EFL, I have. If you're into EFL, I'm assuming you usually would play EFL Fantasy. I do have 3 picks that I would say are almost decent, worth looking at. Boreas Signs, like I said in the preview earlier, he is on fire. He cannot stop scoring. He's Norwich, and they're facing Stoke and Preston North End. I would decently, I would highly recommend you start him. He's just on fire. Daniel Sirkin from Sunderland. He is a pretty good defender, and he's also one of the higher scoring defenders in the fantasy this year. I would definitely pick him. They're playing Hull and Luton, two teams that are inconsistent and not really good. And then I would pick Alfie May as well from Birmingham City. He is on scoring form, and Birmingham City love to score. They've got 2 decent matchups. Lincoln is one of them, and that should be a good game. Otherwise, yeah, he could be the difference for Birmingham City this year. Those are your 3 picks for EFL. Thank you so much for stopping by the Pitch Grid this week. We greatly appreciate any and all listens. If you are listening, you are a trooper, and I greatly appreciate that you stuck it through this entire episode. Please give us a like or follow or share. We're on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Audible, and YouTube. Also, if you have any feedback for us, please drop a comment on Spotify or on YouTube. Greatly appreciate any feedback, as we want to make this podcast great and accessible for you to enjoy. Until next time, please enjoy this upcoming week of action, and we will see you next time.